Welcome to the Building Bliss podcast. And I'm very excited today because I've got a very dear friend of mine, Ayesha Gavin. I've known Ayesha, I think, since I was 12, and we really became friends, I think, when we were about 14, because we used to seriously geek out in geography lessons, and that's where we became firm friends. Now, Ayesha's a fantastic individual. She describes herself as deaf-born, disabled, bisexual Asian female, and she's now running a successful business teaching British Sign Language, and that's been going since 2010. And she teaches a wide variety of people, right from corporate clients like Manchester Airport, schools, and generally improving deaf awareness in society. So welcome to the podcast, Ayesha.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm alright, thank you. Pretty tired, but that's normal, I think.
Not surprised with everything that you do.
Yeah, busy. Never stop.
So shall we dive into the questions then?
Yeah, cool. When you're ready.
So I'm interested to hear your answer to this, because on the Building Bliss podcast we have the 5 pillars of bliss, which is bravery, laughter, inspiration, spark and success. So starting with bravery, can you pick out one moment in your life where you think that you had to be your bravest?
Okay. So, it's going back to about 1999, and at that time I was living and working in Dublin, and I'd gone over there because my ex-partner was from Dublin, and the relationship was pretty abusive. Anyway, I left the relationship and tried living on my own for a little while in Dublin, but it wasn't working. I was really ill. I'm type 1 diabetic, so things were really bad on that count. But also, I think my mental health was in pretty bad shape because I'd just come out of an abusive relationship. There was absolutely no access to any of the support that I needed. There was lots of talking therapies, lots of, groups, lots of one-to-one counselling. But because of deafness, I had absolutely no access to it at all. And also, at that time in Ireland, the healthcare system was really, really different, and you had to pay. So I was working in bank. I'm not exactly going to be the richest, so it was really a hard time. Anyway, I made the decision to leave Ireland and come back to England, come back home. And I remember sitting on the ferry as it pulled into Liverpool thinking, have I made the right decision? Because I knew back in England I didn't have any friends, I didn't have any kind of support network, I didn't know anybody, I had no job, I had no money, I had a car full of stuff that was in my life basically in this car. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And then when I was working in Dublin, I was working with a team of deaf people, and they taught me ISL, Irish Sign Language, which is very different from BSL. And I knew that coming back would mean I'd have to start again learning a language to be able to access whatever was going on. And part of me wanted to stay on the ferry and go back. But I didn't, and I think that was a pretty brave moment, just to stick it out, stay there. And then what sealed it for me really was getting in the car, driving off the ferry. My dad was there. He'd come to Liverpool without telling me to meet me off the ferry, and it was just like I think I've made the right decision. And he got in the car with me and we drove home. So yeah, that was, yeah. And I think afterwards, having to be really brave for fighting for access to support services and trying to make new friends, meet new people, trying to learn a new language. So there was all that into it as well. So yeah, I think that was a brave moment.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people would never think about, that you actually effectively learning a new language, having learned Irish Sign Language, to then come over and learn British Sign Language. So is that something you hadn't done when you were younger, learned British Sign Language? It was only once you'd gone to Ireland that you learnt the Irish Sign Language?
Yeah. I was born deaf, as you said, and my entire education mainstream, which meant no sign language whatsoever. I learnt my first sign in Irish Sign Language at 22.
Wow.
And the sounds fax was going back quite a while, because the office that I worked in, it was actually a bank, it was the Bank of Ireland, and a lot of the deaf employees there communicated with each other using fax. So that was one of the first signs I learned, fax. Yeah. Makes me feel really
Yeah, I'm going to say that really like dates it, doesn't it? So did you study in Ireland? Is that right?
No,
No.
I finished my education in England. My university degree was from Derby. I did media, and that was where I met my ex-partner. And then he asked me to go to Dublin and live with him. And I visited on holiday and things like that, and really liked it. Really liked Dublin. I still really like to go back. I've not been since 1999, but it's a really interesting city. Really, I just really like the vibe of it. So I really enjoyed some of my time when I was there, working in the bank, making friends with these deaf people. They were really what got me through, and I'm still friends with them now. We're still in touch. So yeah, after that, being back in England, having to learn BSL and learn it in a way that was really personal, so that I could access support networks and counselling and things like that. Yeah, so that was a big step, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you settle back at home where you are now, or did you go somewhere else in England when you got back from Dublin?
No, I went back to Bake Up, and I managed to escape. 2003, I think it was, when I met Mark, who's my husband now, and we moved to Darwin, which is near Blackburn, and we lived there for maybe 5 or 6 years, and then Bake Up sucked me back, and I'm back there, and I'm staying there now.
Forever.
Yeah. Is that a good thing? I don't know.
Well, you do get good snow, don't you? So if you like snow,
Yeah,
it's a
we
good
had
place to
snow
live.
the other day, a couple of inches.
Yeah.
Not enough for a school snow day though. Kids were gutted.
Oh yeah. That used to be, didn't it, at school when we were together? They would be like, oh, they've called the Weir bus. Everybody's got to leave for Weir.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how was that growing up in a mainstream school and basically having to just fit in without any of that support or sign language or any of the things that actually would have made your life easier?
Well, yeah. Looking back, I don't know how I did it. But when I was doing it, it was normal.
You didn't know any different?
No, I really didn't know any different. None of my family signed, nobody signed. It was never even suggested that I learned sign language. I remember maybe GCSE year, I had a lady come every week for half an hour and called herself a teacher of the deaf. What she taught me, I have no idea. But I suppose it was just to check that the hearing aids were working. I had radio aid with the teacher had the microphone, I had the receiver. And she would check that that was working and there weren't any problems with it. But I remember it must have been GCSEs. I learnt the alphabet in BSL as part of some sponsored thing. And I showed the woman and she said, oh, that's very good, but tell you something, don't get involved in all that deaf stuff. Yeah, okay. Wow. I'm deaf, but right. If only she could see me now.
God, that's so regressive, isn't it?
Yeah, really backwards.
To think, well, I suppose what we're talking like 30-ish, we won't go too exact with the figure, that's about 30 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Mary, for that 30 years.
We've got to admit it. You don't look any different to me. You look fresh as a daisy.
Your hair's a bit blonder, but that's about it.
And yours is a bit redder. So.
Yeah, a bit redder.
So, do you think you've got braver as you've got older?
Looking back, I think I've always had thoughts that are brave, thoughts that, like, if I say them, I challenge a situation or I challenge discrimination or unfairness. But I feel as I've got older, I'm more inclined to say them. You know, whether that's just HRT, I don't know. But yeah, I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm less inclined to put up with bullshit and just call it out. Whereas younger days, I wouldn't have done that. I'd have kept quiet. Yeah, looking back, I think I was pretty, what's the word, repressed. I didn't speak my mind as much as maybe I should have done. But yeah.
But that's probably a product of your having your communication suppressed by people like the person you've just said, that you were sort of taught not to express yourself or even be able to on an equal footing with other people.
Very much. It's very much a thing. I was taught to believe that I'm hearing, and I still see it now in the deaf children that I work with that have hearing families and hearing schools. There's very much this ethos of teach the child that they are hearing, not deaf. And it's something that I really strongly fight against now. I absolutely believe that that should not be the case. The child can have a deaf identity, can succeed with a deaf identity, same as a hearing person. They just need the right support. And quite a lot of my work is focused on that now, which I find really rewarding, because I don't want any deaf child to go through what I went through, even though at the time that was normal, that was life, that was just how it was. And it's shit, it shouldn't be like that.
No, because there's a lot of navel gazing about using the term deaf as opposed to hard of hearing and various other terms. But I think you're very much, no, deaf is a term, we claim it, and it's part of our identity.
It took me a long time to be able to do that, and one of the biggest steps in that was my mum. When I was growing up, she would never say the word deaf, and she would always say partially hard of hearing. And I used to think, well, that doesn't really describe me, and doesn't really give an indication of what I need the other person to do, like face me, speak clearer, all that kind of thing. And Mum saying that I'm partially hard of hearing just means, it felt like it meant just speak a little bit louder, she'll be fine, kind of thing. Anyway, this went on for years and years and years and years. And then when I came back to England and I started working and I started the business, my mum answered the phone. It was a call for me. Obviously, I don't use the phone now. And Mum answered the phone and she was saying, you can't speak to her because she's deaf. And I felt like I'd been punched in the face, and Mum's actually used that word. And anyway, she put the phone down, life carried on, and it was a few days before I could actually say to her, Mum, you said that word. You said the word deaf, and you never said that before. You've always said partially hard of hearing. What is going on? And Mum said, I used to think that being deaf was a bad thing. I used to think it was a flaw. And the way that she'd been taught to by medical experts, teachers of deaf, whatever, as I was growing up, was that deaf is something to be fixed. And she didn't want to think of her daughter being something that needed to be fixed. So she used the other word. But then she said, I see what you're doing and I see what a difference you're trying to make, and I'm really proud that you're deaf. And that was a huge step into accepting, yeah, I'm deaf and proud of it.
Wow, yeah, that must have been amazing to hear her say it, but it's obviously what you'd taught her.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those moments that stick with you.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Great. So move on to laughter then now. So how important is laughter in getting through life for you?
Sometimes it's the only thing that gets me through. Honestly, it really is. Yeah, I like finding. My favourite is dad jokes, stupid jokes, stupid puns, like a lot of slapstick because it's visual, I think. People falling over and I'm laughing my head off. It's brilliant. My family think I'm weird because I laugh at people slipping on the ice all day long and they're like, what's funny? It's really hurting now. I'm like, my shoe came off. Yeah, definitely. Definitely,
yeah.
really, really important.
Sometimes the simplest things are the funniest.
Yeah.
My family have to put up a lot with my puns. They're getting quite sick of them now.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's when you're like, you love English and writing, so you probably really enjoy that wordplay element.
That's been one positive, I think, of my mainstream education, because unfortunately the standard of education in schools for deaf people is a little bit lacking, shall we say. So yeah, being at school, mainstream school, definitely gave me a love of English and the language and the way it works, and being able to find stupid puns and wordplay, things like that. I just love it. I love it. Yeah.
And in terms of you accessing comedy, I presume that's kind of a closed off world for you, really, unless you bring your own interpreter, or have you been able to visit comedy clubs or see comedians live?
Never. I've seen deaf comedians. Deaf humour to hearing people is very different. Yeah, there's a lot of things that deaf will laugh at, but hearing just like, well, just goes completely over the head. I remember a while ago I was sat in a pub with some deaf friends, and there was hearing people there as well, obviously. One man was CODA, CODA, which we abbreviate for child of a deaf adult. So he'd grown up, BSL was his first language, and obviously he's hearing, so he had like both worlds kind of thing. And his wife's hearing, and we all sat around, and one of the deaf cracked a joke, and he was laughing his head off, and his wife's like, so. And it was just really, really interesting how the effects of deaf culture on this hearing man made him appreciate deaf humour. I just found it really, really interesting. But as for me going to comedy clubs and things like that, I've never been. TV has been brilliant because of subtitles, and I really enjoy that. Deaf comedians, some, yeah, were alright. But I think the funniest people in my life are my family, and my friends, and my cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're giving me ideas now to start a comedy night that is accessible to deaf people, because it seems a real
Well,
a real
I'm
shame
here.
that not able to access that. So would a deaf comedian purely sign, so their jokes would be in sign language?
Yeah, there's a couple. One that springs to mind is John Smith. Facial expressions, just amazing. He's really, really good. He's very physical, very. His words, the signs don't just come off his hands; they come off his whole body, and he just gets into it. It's brilliant. He's brilliant. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
So can you think of any of your favourite jokes, if I put you on the spot?
I have got one, but it's a long story.
That's okay.
Okay, right. So this man, right, and he's finished work. He works in a really boring job in an office, and he's driving home from work one day, and it's winter, and it's dark, and it's cold, and it's lashing, and he's absolutely fed up, and he's driving home, windscreen wipers going, and country road, and his car breaks down, and he's like, oh, bollocks, what do I do now? And he just can't get his car started. I've phoned for help, so he gets to know about that, and battery's dead. Oh, shit, what do I do? And he's looking round and sees this big house on the hill, and there's lights on, and you think, oh, I'll go and knock on, maybe they can help me. So huddle up against them, runs over, bangs on the door, and this fella opens the door, and like, come in, what's wrong? And the man says, oh, my car's broken down, I don't know what I'm going to do, I've got no phone battery, I'm just stranded. And the fella says, right, well, we're a brotherhood of monks, right, we'll take you in, we'll look after you, give you a bed for the night, and you can stay there. And then in the morning, we can see about getting the car sorted out. We don't have any phones because we're monks, right? Okay, fine. So this guy goes to bed and gets a hot meal, everything like that. It's like, thank you. And in the middle of the night, he's woken by this beautiful noise. It's just the sound that makes him feel amazing. He's never heard it before, and he's just like, wow, it's just so beautiful. How do I describe it? And it makes him feel really relaxed, really happy, really content. And he's awake half the night listening to this sound, but he's not tired. It's like the sound like rejuvenated him. So the next morning, he asks this monk, what is that noise? What is it? And man says, oh yeah, we get a lot of people asking that, but I can't tell you what it is because you have to be a monk. You have to be like part of the brotherhood to have the secret. The man's like, right, okay, well, I really want to know. I'll give you money, I'll give you anything. Just tell me what it is. The monk's like, no, you've got to be in the brotherhood. Fine. So the man leaves, finishes breakfast, sorts his car out, goes on his way. But he can't stop thinking about the sound. And so for the next few weeks, he's just obsessed by this sound. I've got to hear it again. I've got to find out what it is. So he goes back to the monk. You're laughing. Do you know the story? Right. So he arrives at this monastery again. And he asks the man, please, tell me what the sound is. And the monk says, I can't. You've got to be in brotherhood. Right, okay. So in the end, the man says, right, fine. How do I become part of brotherhood? And the monk says, well, there's lots of different ways, but the best way that I can recommend to you is to travel, right? And try and count every pebble on the earth and count every blade of grass on the earth, right? And the man's like, oh, fuck off, I'm not doing that, right? And the man says, well, that's what you've got to do. It's part of the rules, you've got to be in brotherhood. Right? So the man just forgets about it, but that sound is in his head and he can't get rid of it and can't stop thinking about it. So it's like, right, fine. He sells his house, sells his car, gives up his job, goes on travelling. A few years later, he comes back and he knocks on the door of the monastery. And the monk opens the door and he goes, oh, it's you again. And the man goes, yeah. I did what you told me to. Right? I started travelling, started counting the grass, counting the pebbles, and the monk says, so what did you realise? And the man said, I realised that the only thing that man can truly know is himself, and it's through searching the soul. Everything else is irrelevant, and that's only for God to know. And the monk goes, that's really well reasoned that. Come in, you're part of the brotherhood. And the man says, right, finally, you can tell me what this sound is. And the monk said, I'll show you. So he takes him in the monastery, goes downstairs into the cellar, opens the door, there's a big room. Yeah. Do you want to know what the sound was?
Yeah.
I can't tell you because you're not a monk.
That's brilliant. You got your first 5 minutes of stand up there. I need to get you on the stage.
I didn't make it up.
So moving on to inspiration now. Who or what inspires you the most?
I think it would have to be my mum and dad. I'm keeping it close to home today.
Yeah.
My dad was born in a very small village in what at that time was India. This was pre-partition. And he grew up during pretty much the Civil War. And his family, when partition happened, had to move from India to Pakistan because they were Muslims. And I don't think the journey was very long, although I'm not sure. He very rarely spoke about it when I was a child. But I know that the family moved to Pakistan and set up very close to the border. And my dad's mum was a teacher, my grandmother, and my grandfather, my dad's dad, couldn't read or write. And his job was to work on the train station, selling herbs to people on the trains, which was really unusual back in the day, because a woman to be breadwinner and the only person to have a job and to be literate was massive. Anyway, so my dad grew up in Pakistan after he moved from India, and he wanted to come to England because there were very few job opportunities in that area at that time after the Civil War and partition. It was really like a depressed economy at that time. So my dad wanted to come to England, but my dad had no birth certificate because his birth was never recorded. And but my dad did have a brother who works at the embassy in London. So he contacted his brother, and his brother helped him to get a passport, get everything he needed. And when my dad turned up at the passport office, they asked him what's his date of birth, and my dad went 2nd of October 1927. He just completely made it up. Right, okay, log that on. And that's the date that's on his gravestone now, even though we all know it's not true. It's very unlikely to be true. Anyway, so my dad had very little money, so he approached one of the captains of a ship that was travelling from Lahore to Glasgow and said, I want you to come on the ship, but I've got no money. And I guess the guy said, fine, you can work the engines and that'll be your fare. And my dad was really interested in machinery. He was engineering. He was an engineering guy. He was a draftsman. Absolutely beautiful talent, drawing. It's amazing. Anyway, so Dad came over to Glasgow in 1956, and yeah, Glasgow shipyards, 1956. Fair amount of racism going on, I should think. So he had to put up with all that, and he slept in a bed that during the day was slept in by people who worked the night shift. So it was bed sharing, which was pretty gross. But Dad did it. Anyway, in 1961, I think it was, he flew back to Pakistan and asked for my mum to marry him. Now, my mum had never met him, and my dad asked my mum and dad's, my mum's parents for permission. Yeah, agreed. Excuse me. And then, 1962, my mum flew over to England. She was in her 20s. She'd never been to England before. She left her family, friends, her language, her culture, flew 5,000 miles to a man she was already married to, she'd never met. And she got here and she met my dad for the first time. My dad had actually married her over post.
Wow.
So he came back to England and London and got the marriage certificate, signed it, posted it to my mum. My mum got it, signed it. So legally they were married.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, that was the thing way back when.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do now,
No.
but back then. And Mum had to basically start living a life here, and like she was a qualified teacher. She was a teacher of English literature and Persian literature. But my dad didn't want her to work. He wanted kids, so Mum gave up lecturing, being a teacher, and settled into life in England, and then moved from London to Manchester, where my oldest brother was born. I'm just trying to work out the dates. And then they moved to Bakewell, to Weir. And Mum says, she always said, it was December 1962 or 3, must have been 63. And they moved into the house in Weir. It was a farm, which my dad bought, I think, for something like £1,000 for a farm, a barn, and something like 17 acres of land, and set up house there. But Mum couldn't explore the village because the snow was that bad. She couldn't get out for 6 weeks. Just up the road from us we have some bungalows, and Mum always said she didn't know those bungalows were there for the first 6 weeks she lived in Weir because the snow was so bad.
Wow.
And and they created a family, 4 children, and then in 1960, I'm wrong on the dates, 68 I think it was, my sister was killed in a car accident. She ran out onto the road in front of the house and was hit by a car. She was 3, so they had to get through that. And then by that time they had my 2 brothers. Decided they didn't want any more children until 9 years later. Surprise! So yeah, I think their stories, their sort of put up with the attitude to get through and to create a better life for themselves and their kids is just something that I draw on every day. How did you do that? I had no idea at all.
That is, yeah, that does bring it back to bravery, doesn't it? To just basically give up everything you know and start afresh. Do you know why your dad picked Weir in particular? I'm always curious. I never asked my dad when he was here why we ended up in Rosendale and what drew him there. Do you know why he ended up there?
My dad was, how do I put this? He had lots of ideas and he wasn't afraid to follow them through. So when he arrived in England, I believe he worked on the Glasgow shipyard as an engineer. Glasgow Technical College, and I found a certificate from Glasgow Technical College, which doesn't exist anymore. His certificate in draftsmanship, technical drawing, and then he decided he wanted to work in Manchester. Why? I don't know. He didn't like Glasgow. I'm not surprised. He didn't like London either. He moved to Manchester. But then he decided to change his mind and he wanted to become a farmer.
Right.
Because
why not?
Why wouldn't he? And so he was looking for a farm and he just picked one. I had no idea why he picked Weir, but that was what he told. And then later, he didn't want to do technical drawing anymore and didn't want to be a farmer anymore. He wanted to be a petrol station owner. So he set up a petrol station.
My dad did that too.
Farm. Yeah,
he bought a random petrol
That's
station
amazing.
that never made any money. And my mum always says, "Why on earth he got that petrol station? I'll never know."
Yeah,
that's so bizarre.
I never knew that like that. Wow. Yeah, and then changed his mind. Didn't want to be a petrol station anymore. He wanted to be a butcher, a halal butcher. So that was what he did. He became a halal butcher and he ran his own business doing that. And then he retired. So yeah, just random. It's been random.
So I suppose a lesson you could say you'd learnt from him was it's never a problem to reinvent yourself and try something completely different.
Yeah. yeah, just be adaptable, definitely. It was very much like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we've always said your dad and my dad were very similar in that respect, quite different thinkers
yeah,
in the world.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, I saw a rainbow on the way here. I took a picture of it for you because I
Yeah.
thought something was going on up
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
great. Now, so how do you think that your story can inspire other people? Because I know obviously you do a lot with deaf awareness now in the community. Is that what you want your main sort of legacy to be, do you think?
Oh well, I'd like my children to know where they came from and their background. And I'd like to leave the world a better place than I found it. But that's probably about all, really. Just try and have some fun along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a bad legacy, is it, really?
Yeah.
Have your children
It'll
learned
do.
sign language?
Yeah. Yeah, they're teenagers. They're weird.
I feel you.
Robin understands a lot more than she lets on. And we've had situations where Mark and I are having quite a private conversation, and they should turn around and say, "You can't say that, Dad." And how do you know?
Oh, wow.
And I remember last year we went to Panto, which was interpreted, and there were quite a few deaf people there, and Robin was sat watching these two deaf people have this conversation in their language and voicing over what was going on. And I'm thinking, oh my god, I've got to be really careful now. Alex is better as well than he lets on. He won't sign, but if I really need him to, he will produce the sign. And I'll think, how do you know that? I've tried to encourage them both to actually learn and maybe get qualifications in it, but neither of them are interested. They just see it as it's just life.
Hmm.
You know, they don't see it as anything unusual. Yeah, mum's deaf, so. And that's fine by me.
Yeah.
That's fine by me. Yeah.
And do you see a sea change happening in society of deaf awareness improving and companies making more efforts to make things more accessible?
Yeah. Yeah. Very slowly. Sometimes it's like one step forward, two steps back. Still a lot of work to be done. But I think there's a couple of things recently which have helped or will help. One of them is the BSL Act, which was passed last year, April, which might amaze a lot of people listening to this because it was the first time we actually have an act that protects the rights of BSL users. We now have a statutory right to our language, which we didn't before. So yeah, that's made a difference because now people are saying, oh, we've got to sort out an interpreter. We have to make this information accessible in BSL. We have to get things translated, which is good for me. So yeah.
Yeah. Because I read on your website that 1 in 6 people in the country are hard of hearing or have hearing problems. So it's not a small issue, is it? It's something that affects everybody.
No.
And probably as you get older starts to affect a lot more people.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The current statistic now is 1 in 5.
Right.
And it's expected by the year 2050 to become 1 in 4
Right.
that actually are affected by deafness, whether it's mild or profound, to have some degree of hearing loss. And partly is due to we're an ageing population, and as we get older, we get more deaf. And also, I think because of noise exposure, because you see a lot of kids with the AirPods and the loud music, and it's really not a good situation. There needs to be more awareness for that, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because you've got people going to loud clubs with very loud music,
Yeah.
and then just constantly, I know my kids have always got their earpods in, and as you say, that can't be good, and there's probably a ticking time bomb for that down the line.
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember where the research was from, but there was some research conducted into the effects of listening to music with the AirPods above a certain threshold of loudness will cause damage to the ears, because we're just not designed for that. So yeah, it's a problem, and I think it will become worse in the future. Yeah.
And it's definitely something. I remember being at the bus station in Manchester, and there was a deaf couple trying to get some information from somebody, and they just couldn't communicate, and I felt bad. I was like, I should have learnt some sign language so that at least I could step in. So I think hopefully more and more people will realise it as an issue, and perhaps just, even if they get the basics, that will be able to help somebody if they came across a deaf person.
Yeah. There's a pilot at the moment looking into creating a GCSE in British Sign Language, and just this morning I shared a post from a school, I think it's in Sussex, which has a primary school which has scrapped teaching French to the children and is teaching them BSL instead. And there's a lot of schools that I know of that I've been directly involved with, either through the children or training the staff, where they want to teach BSL as a subject. And I work 2 days a week in high school in Bury, teaching sign language to year 7s, and it's a skill that I hope that will stay with them for life, even if all they remember is, hello, my name is, are you alright, can I help you? And then after that they go, I don't know any more sign language. That's fine, but you've got something, you've got to start. That's the important thing.
Well, I think you're more likely to come across a deaf person than a French person, aren't you? Well, from what we've just discussed in terms of statistics. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Moving on to Spark then. Now, obviously, we said in the introduction that you're a disabled person, so you must have some challenging days health-wise. How do you get your spark on those days? What gives you your spark?
That's an interesting one. I've always had that spark. I'm born with it. I think it's because it's always been difficult. So you have to have that motivation to carry on. Otherwise, you wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't go anywhere. I think one moment that stands out was when I got my first hearing aids, and they weren't behind the ear hearing aid. It was a big black box, and strapped to the front of my chest, really heavy, horrible thing. And not wanting to wear it because I'd grown up pure silence until then, and then just having this horrible, noisy, smelly thing. And mum and dad having arguments with me when I was like 4 or 5, and you can imagine the tantrums that happened. You've got to wear it, I don't want to wear it, you've got to. And just realising in the end that was the only thing that was going to allow me to do anything. And like, okay, I've got to learn to accept this. And I think that was it. You just got to do it. You've got to keep on. Yeah, but I can't. Where do I get my spark from? I don't know.
Just built in. Probably from your dad.
Yeah.
And your mum.
Probably. Yeah. I would imagine so.
And can you pinpoint one moment in your life where you got the spark to set up your business, for example, which you did in 2010? Was there something in particular that made you think, right, this is what I want to do now?
setting up business. Well, that was my dad. Again, it's always my mum or my dad. Yeah. When I came back to England and got through all the crap that I needed to get through, I realised that when I was really little, I'd wanted to be a teacher. And like really small, that was always my I want to be a teacher. And when I was about 15, we went to the careers advisors connections. I think you might remember it. We've got a store town centre. Yeah. And spoke to somebody there. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher. Oh, yeah, that might be a bit difficult. You might have a problem controlling the classroom because you're deaf. Oh, okay then. And being 15, being impressionable, I kind of went, oh, okay then, so I can't be a teacher. Right. And then, as I went through the GCSEs and A-level years, my family wanted me to become a pharmacist. Can you imagine me sat in back of boots, putting pills into bottles? I would have shot myself in the head a long time ago. I would not have been able to cope with that. Anyway, what was the question again? Sorry.
So where you got your spark for your business and
why did I set up the business? After I'd done the uni degrees and everything like that, and then realised that, well, actually I can be a teacher if I want to be. By that time I knew BSL, so I had interpreters for the teacher training, which was just amazing, because like, wow, I've got full access to this, I can understand everything, I can do everything. Got my PGCE, and then I went to work for another lady that lives in Bacup, and she set up her own business. She became deaf at the age of, well, 21 to 31, about 10 years she became profoundly deaf for no known reason. And she set up a business teaching deaf awareness, disability awareness, deaf-blind awareness. We used to go all over the country teaching to councils and housing associations, things like that. It's a really interesting job. And my dad always said to me, you should set up your own business. Set up your own business. You should do it. And me going, no, Dad, I'm not a businesswoman. I don't have a business head. I'm a teacher. That's my skill. I'm happy with that. I'm not a businesswoman. And we used to have this, not an argument, but it was a constant kind of banter between us. Anyway, after he died, my daughter at that time was about 2.5, and after her birth I had quite severe postnatal depression, so I couldn't really work after she was born. When my dad died, we moved back to Weir to look after my mum. She wasn't coping after Dad died, and I just thought, yeah, maybe he was right. Maybe I'll give it a go. So my initial aim was just to teach BSL, and I started with a folder in a drawer that was labelled BSL Level 1, and started teaching that on a one-to-one basis, and from then it's just grown. But definitely it was my dad. You should set yourself up, you should do your own business. I can't, I'm not a businesswoman, and I still think I'm not a businesswoman.
I was just going to ask you that.
I've actually learned that.
Do you class yourself as a businesswoman?
Many mistakes, but no, I still don't see myself as a businesswoman. I've got too much heart, I think. I'm too nice, I'm too soft. It's been said to me many times, you need to be tougher, you need to be... It's just not in my nature.
I don't think those two things are exclusive, though. I think you can be... I'd like to think I am a business owner with a heart, and I think we need more people like us out there in that field. It doesn't have to be cutthroat.
No. I agree with you, and I hope that is a model for the future, really, that you can have a business that is successful, but it has heart as well, and that can relate to people on a human level, is really, really important.
And I think that's perhaps now more women are business owners. That perhaps is the tide that's changing.
Yeah.
I think we were discussing the other day that you found it difficult accessing your local business community.
Yeah, that was a very interesting experience. The reason that I joined that business network was because I was doing a shameless plug for my own business, basically, and I just felt a lot of local companies, were not accessible. So I was to be able to say to them, look, you need to do this, you should be doing that, just in terms of deaf awareness. So I thought, if I join this community network thing, I might have a bit more weight behind what I'm saying. Got involved, not for me. Very political, very, dare I say it, male orientated, very targets driven, very, we're best in the world, we do this and we're only from makeup. I'm thinking, and what?
Yeah.
It was he was just bragging, basically.
Yeah.
And I won a couple of awards with them, but really it felt very tokenistic. I won the Enterprising Woman of the Year award, and I'm just thinking, my God, you have no idea what I'm doing, you have no idea why I'm doing it, you've got no interest in what my plans are for the future, and you're not interested in taking on board what I'm trying to tell you, so you fuck right off, mate. I still got the award, which broke, incidentally.
Oh, well.
The same night.
Quality.
Thank you. It's on the shelf, but no, I'm just not involved in it anymore. Just don't have time for it. Which is a shame in a way, because there were some really nice people involved, and there were some really good, ethical businesses going on that would have been nice to support, but it's just not worth it. It's a real shame.
Would you set up your own, not rival, but would you set up your own perhaps more ethical, nice network for people who don't want to get into that side of things, or is it you've just not got time? You're doing enough as it is?
Well, yeah. If I had all the time in the world, yes.
Yeah.
But realistically, probably not. And I need somebody. I mean, now I'm very lucky. I've got an amazing PA. She's so organised, isn't she? She's just like, wow. And I really need her, because my organisation skills are just pants. It's just lets me down every time. I am so bad on planning and organising. But she will change my business, definitely. Thanks, Liz, if you're listening. But yeah, I've got lots of plans for the future. That's not one of them.
No. Well, that brings us on to success then. So what does success look like for you?
I really thought about that when I read that question. All right, okay. I think for me now, success is knowing that you tried your best. You gave everything you could do. You tried to help people make the world a better place. That's it. And you don't have to lie awake at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about how you can pay your next bill. That's about it, really.
And has that changed over the years from when you were younger?
Very much so. Although, I'm saying a lot of really positive things about my mum and dad, yeah, they weren't angels. There was a lot of criticism and a lot of status, but a lot of emphasis put on status. You have to be the best, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a dentist, you have to be a lawyer. You can't be somebody who's just happy working in an office. That's not good enough,
Mm.
kind of thing. And I think that really influenced me as a child. Just, I've got to get the best job, I've got to get the best degree, I've got to do this. And it was very much, about money and about status. And I put a lot of pressure on myself because a lot of the things I did or I couldn't do for whatever reason just felt like a failure. So for a long, long time, I viewed myself as a failure. That I'm just letting everybody down. I'm not worth it. It's not worth me trying to do anything because everything's shit. And yeah, that's not a good place to be in, really. You know, but a lot of things have happened that made me change that. So yeah.
I think it does change as you get older, doesn't it? And I know when you were saying about connections before, I didn't tell my mum and dad that it did say, I did like the test, the personality test, and it did say number 1 was a doctor. And you know how obsessed my mum is with me being a doctor. And obviously I did become a lawyer, and it's only now that I'm 46 that I'm finally following my passion of being a creative, a comedian, and doing stuff like the podcast. But there's so much pressure on you as a teenager.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess if you're similar to me, you're trying not to apply that similar pressure to your own children.
Yeah, definitely. I always say to them, do what you like, do what you're good at. That's all we can try your best, that's all we can expect. And I'd like to think that happier people compared to what we were at that age, although I know there's really different pressures on them now, and it's still really, really difficult. But I think teenage years are difficult. I wouldn't go through mine again. I love no money. No.
Well, as you say, it's different now, different pressures with social media, etc. And and still a lot of pressure. This pressure, as I said, I went to the options evening for my son last night, and they're talking about your 4-year plan and what you're planning to do, what's your career, and like he's 13. And I'm very much the same as you. What are you good at, and what's going to make you happy? And don't wait till you're 45, 46 to follow your dreams, and try and do that now.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. Yeah.
So what would young Ayesha say if she could see you now?
I think she'd be really relieved, because a lot of my anxieties, fears as a young person was, am I going to make it? Am I going to be alright? Am I going to be able to have a job that doesn't make me want to kill myself and can actually pay me money? Will I have kids? Will we be happy? It was very much on that level when I was a kid, the pressure that I put on myself anyway. And I think the younger me would be really relieved to see that it doesn't work out. I have got a job that I like. I have got a job that provides. I've got a family. I live in Bacup. Was that on the list? I'm not sure. And I lost my parents, but I found a way to cope with it. And I think she'd be really relieved about that, really happy about that. Yeah.
Brilliant. And is there anything exciting on the horizon that you want to tell us about for the business or for you personally?
So many. One of the things I'm most excited about is a couple of things. One of them is next year my company is going to become the only centre in the United Kingdom that will teach Irish Sign Language at level 6, which is a degree level.
Wow.
The qualification exists. There are people that use Irish Sign Language every day of their lives as interpreters or as deaf people, but there is no centre currently in the UK that offers that qualification. and next year we will become the first and only to offer the qualification, which is huge in terms of sign language progression in itself, but also in my journey, because I first started with Irish Sign Language, so it's really nice to come back to that. And the second one is in September, hopefully. We will be launching our interpreting translation courses, and I believe that we will be one of 2 centres in the north that will provide that service, which is we train people to become interpreters in sign language and translators in BSL, which is different scale to interpreting, I'm sure you know. But those are the 2 things for the business that I'm really excited for next year. Personally, I'm trying to convince my family to travel more. I want to travel more. Yeah, but with 2 people on the spectrum, it's going to take a bit of persuading, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slow steps. Well, that's a real full circle moment to come back and do the Irish Sign Language. So if people want to hear this and they think, right, I want to pull my finger out and learn some sign language, how can they get on one of your courses? What's your website and social media?
Yeah, Ayesha Communications is the name of the business, and we have online courses, a couple. But if you're interested in learning sign language and you want to do it locally, the best place to look at is a website called Signature, and they are at the moment the only awarding body for BSL. So if you go on their website, Signature BSL, and you will find there a course finder. You just type in your postcode and it comes up with the nearest centre to you. I do recommend that you try and find a deaf tutor rather than a hearing one, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. Just try and find somebody who's qualified at the bare minimum. Yeah, get on with it.
Yeah. I'm certainly going to do that myself, because I think there needs to be more people out in the world that have at least got a basic grasp so that they can help if they need to.
If you join an online course, it'll be mates rates, Mary.
All right, well, there you go. I've got no excuse now, have I? Well, that's brilliant. Thanks so much for coming over and for taking the time. I should also give a shout out to Siobhan Rocks, who's been interpreting for Ayesha today, which is a new experience for me. But I think it's gone brilliantly and seamlessly. So thank you both of you.
Thank you for the opportunity.